But it's time to go on an aside. IowaColdCases.org. So the Johnny Gosch write-up here from this website, featuring a couple details that we have not yet gone over. Case summary by Jody Ewing and Aaron Brilbeck. It's a story that shocked communities and catapulted Iowa into the national spotlight, changed state law, and forever changed the way parents monitored their children's activities. 12-year-old Des Moines Register paperboy Johnny Gosch left his West Des Moines home on Sunday morning, September 5th, 1982. To begin his paper route, he wore a white sweatshirt and Kim's Academy on the back, warm-up pants, blue rubber flip-flops, and carried a yellow paper bag. Normally, his father, John Gosch, accompanied him on the route, but on this day, Johnny went alone. He never came home. What happened after that has been the subject of speculation for more than 3 decades. In a November 11th, 2010 interview, the day before Johnny would have celebrated his 41st birthday, Johnny's mother, Noreen Gosch, told WHO-TV Channel 13's Aaron Brilbeck that several other paperboys, all witnesses to the abduction, said Johnny was approached by a man driving a blue Ford Fairmont. The guy shut off his engine, opened the passenger door, and swung his feet out on the curb where the boys were assembling their newspapers. And he started talking about where's 86th Street, Miss Gosch told Brilbeck. Johnny turned to Mike and said, quote, "I've got my papers loaded in the wagon. I'm scared. I'm getting out of here. I'm gonna head home," end quote. So this is really weird. So was it just the demeanor of the driver? Like he opened the door as if he was trying to get him to get in the vehicle? Like the demeanor, the tone, because simply asking for directions, I mean, why would you open the door to ask for directions? Though that's kind of weird. Or did Johnny actually see that there were other people in the car and they all looked shady and he just got that intuitive feeling that this is just a bad situation with bad people? But continuing on here, as Johnny left, the driver of the car took off too, the boys told police. The man pulled the door shut and started up the engine. And why would he turn off the engine? I guess the engine was that loud that he wouldn't be heard. Okay, whatever. Started up the engine, but before he left, he reached up and flicked the dome light 3 times. Then he pulled out and left, Miss Gosch said. She said she believes the driver was signaling another person who later grabbed Johnny, and that one of the paperboys saw a tall man come out in between 2 houses and follow her son. West Des Moines Police Lieutenant Jeff Miller, a rookie cop at the time, told Brilbeck police began scouring the area immediately but hit one wall after another. They went ahead and called in the staff, Miller said. The troopers. They called in detectives, reserves, contacted Polk County sheriffs, the state patrol. At that point, they did a door-to-door canvass of that neighborhood, trying to find someone who saw something of Johnny. Nothing was found, and they saw nothing at all, said Miller. Noreen Gosch kept meticulous notes about her son's disappearance and documented the first 2 years in an early chapter. They have no crime, I have no son. The first 2 years. In a book she'd later publish about her unsuccessful efforts to work with police and what it took to finally get law enforcement's attention. Now, again, I don't know how many people actually think Noreen might have been involved in Johnny's disappearance. I mean, there's all kinds of people online. Obviously, I haven't seen any evidence of that. I don't know if anybody's presented any solid evidence of that. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's always the parents, whatever. And obviously, there's some strange information about Leonard Johnny Gosch's father and what he may or may not have been involved in. But, yeah, as far as Noreen goes, and Noreen's stories never changed, unlike Leonard's, and regarding other individuals. So, would Noreen be keeping meticulous notes and trying this hard, risking her life, going through all these threats and death threats, if she was in on it in any way? It just doesn't seem likely. I just wanted to point that out just to be thorough, not that there's a lot of people saying that she was involved. Just, again, this is MINDSHOCK, where we examine every single possible theory. But, yeah, I don't think anybody keeping meticulous notes like this that could be double-checked, unless someone wants to assert that she's keeping them, kind of trying to keep tabs on who knows what, where, how, in order to keep something covered up. But again, would she push this hard and endure all these death threats and push back against police? Also, keep in mind the year here. This is the early 80s. I mean, there wasn't this level of police criticism at that time on the scale that there is post-internet, where, you can find literally countless hours of police beating up old women and people in wheelchairs, et cetera, and shooting unarmed people. So the level, this kind of, that wasn't public information to the extent that it is now, or a lot of police corruption in the early 80s, it wasn't exposed to the degree it is now. It was barely exposed at all. So, yeah, all things to keep in mind. Let's continue here. A Mother's Crusade. 1 month after her son's disappearance, Noreen founded the Johnny Gosch Foundation and also developed a program called In Defense of Children. She began touring the nation, making nearly 1,000 personal appearances with law enforcement, missing persons organizations, those involving human trafficking, and doing whatever she could to increase overall awareness of crimes involving children. Again, if she was involved in some kind of ring, why would she do that? That would make the ring even more difficult to function with the more awareness of all these things. On July 1st, 1984, a bill she authored, the Johnny Gosch Bill, was passed into Iowa law. It mandated immediate police involvement whenever a child went missing and was subsequently adopted by 8 additional states. And it's also kind of, you're living in a clown world where you actually need to have this passed into law. Like, a missing child, why would you not investigate that seriously immediately, especially under these kinds of circumstances? A boy does not leave his dog. I mean, that's well known. Okay, anyway, that same year, she traveled to Washington, D.C. and testified before Congress during hearings on organized crime. Her testimony, she said, led to death threats and also, in part, the eventual establishment of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. President Ronald Reagan invited her to the center's opening and dedication. She went on to work on 2 documentaries, one for HBO and another for the State Department. Her story and what she believed happened to her son led to her writing Why Can't Johnny Come Home?, a book published in 2000. Time marched onward, months turning into more years, still with no sign of her son. In the interim, 2 more young Des Moines boys also vanished under mysterious circumstances. 13-year-old paperboy Eugene Martin vanished from Des Moines' South Side on August 12, 1984. Not quite 2 years after Martin's disappearance, 13-year-old Mark Allen told his mother he planned to walk to a friend's house down the street but never arrived at the neighbor's home and hasn't been seen since March 29, 1986. And I just have to make a comment on it because it is absolutely disgusting, vile, and evil what police told Mark Allen's mother, that we can't publicize his case and don't make a stink because we don't want people to be afraid. They totally swept this poor kid and his grieving family under the rug. I mean, this is criminal behavior by the police department. I mean, even if they're innocent of any kind of corruption and all that, the whole point is to serve and protect, not to sweep under the rug and deny justice by denying awareness. I mean, this is just unconscionable, and it needs to be stated because, I mean, even Eugene Martin's case relatively downplayed, again, compared to Gosch's anyway. But Mark Allen, just unconscionable. Even people familiar with Johnny Gosch's case, some of them don't know about Mark Allen. Some of them know about Eugene Martin, not even all of them. But Mark Allen just has been completely swept under the rug. Absolutely unacceptable on the part of law enforcement. Still awaiting answers. Mark Allen's mother, Nancy Allen, has stated she doesn't know whether her son's disappearance is linked to the disappearance of either Johnny Gosch or Eugene Martin, but felt police were reluctant to pursue her son's case because of the other 2 missing boys. I got the distinct feeling police did not want parents to be frightened to let their children sell newspapers or do different things, Nancy Allen told WHO TV's Aaron Brobeck in a story Channel 13 aired November 25th, 2010. Let's go all the way back to the Sword and Scale interview that we started with. Now that we have debunked Zalva, again, if the baseball banner and World's Fair t-shirt can be verified, and Zalva himself, I mean, if he really did contact Noreen and state his mistake, I mean, that's all. That would make that situation very clear. So the host, Mike, starts to get into the controversial issue of Noreen implicating her ex-husband. Noreen says that she never directly accused her husband of being involved in the case, and that she considers it an unanswered question stemming from Bonacci answering the judge's own question of how they knew Johnny would be alone by saying prior arrangements were made with Johnny's father. So, for the people that don't trust Ted Gunderson, because some people are stating that Ted Gunderson is compromised. Now, I don't know how much sense that could make. Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue, but as posters have pointed out regarding Ted Gunderson, if he really is controlled op and some kind of a shill, that would mean that he was put out this info, true or not, in order to distract away from even more damning info. But it just doesn't really make a lot of sense, because Gunderson was one of these first guys that got the ball rolling into exposing these corrupt politicians, law enforcement, in satanic abuse and child trafficking. So either way, apparently, if this information's coming from Bonacci, verified by Gunderson, then Noreen is not really the source of this info regarding implicating Leonard, her husband Johnny's father, because this is Bonacci. So she goes on to say that she doesn't see why Bonacci would lie about that detail, but is unwilling to embrace his allegation until it is proven. So, again, if she really was just wanted to implicate her husband, she could make a lot stronger claims, but she clearly doesn't here. She's saying it's an unanswered question, and more proof is needed. I mean, that's a measured, level-headed response for the people who think that she went mad or whatever. She also states that Bonacci identified Michael Aquino as the colonel who paid for Johnny. She says she knows where the house in Sioux City, Iowa was and who owned it. Noreen refers to the court records of the Bonacci trial being sealed, and she says that in 2008, former Omaha Police Chief Robert Wadman tried to gain control of the sealed file so he could destroy it, leading her to enlist John DeCamp to stop it from happening. Noreen also states that Alicia Owen's child looks exactly like Robert Wadman, and he refused to take a DNA test. Noreen claims that Wadman started threatening her because her website hosted a report given to her by Ted Gunderson and mentioned public information from the Omaha World Herald about him. She also discusses being sued by Wadman, which was dropped after DeCamp beat him in court. And she says that Wadman left threatening messages on her home answering machine. So not only does she have issues with the Des Moines police chief, but also the Omaha police. I mean, this is corruption across the board. Some more information here. This is the FAW cast interview, September 2016. Noreen mentions the night before Johnny asked to do his paper route by himself because all the other boys were, and Noreen rejected it, saying that the other boys were older than him. He went out alone anyway. Says a blue over blue car pulled up. A man shouted through the window that he was asking for directions, but Johnny kept walking to the paper drop at the corner. The blue car made a U-turn in the street and pulled back up to where the kids were sitting folding their papers. I went over some of these details before, so apparently he made 2 attempts to get directions from Johnny Gosch, even making a U-turn to do so. That's kind of creepy. I mean, that's enough to freak somebody out, because if it was just the one pull-up, okay, open the door, ask, whatever. If it's the second time and Johnny Gosch is getting a really bad feeling here. So check this account out. So in this FAW cast interview, so Noreen is stating the car made a U-turn, pulled back up to where the kids were sitting folding their papers. Then the man got out through the passenger door. So not just opened. In this interview, she's stating he got out of the car, through the passenger door, and started asking questions using garbled words as if he was under the influence or had a speech impediment. Says that as Johnny walked away, creeped out by the man got back in his car, slammed the door, started the engine, and flicked the dome light 3 times before speeding away. Wow. Okay, a lot more details here. So Johnny's freaked out by this guy, maybe because he's seems insane, and if he can't speak properly. And then the man got back into his car and slammed the door as if angry? Okay, she says as soon as that happened, a tall, thin man, estimated about 6'5", and again, to kids, someone who's tall, 6'2", 6'3", might look 6'5", whatever. Again, we don't know that. Came out from between two houses and followed. Also, if people that are like really skinny and lanky, they look taller than they actually are due to their disproportionate frame. Two houses followed Johnny quite stealthily. What does that mean? Does that mean he was like ducking low by bushes? Says that the blue car had gone full circle, came back up on a side street where it parked. Noreen claims that as Johnny turned, the back door opened, someone got out. The man following Johnny shot him with something that made him drop to the ground. Then they both loaded Johnny into the car before they slammed the car door and ran the stop sign heading north on 42nd Street. According to Noreen, a boy in his bedroom, PJ Smith, is the one who heard a scuffle, looked out the window, and saw Johnny being shot with the stun gun, allegedly, then loaded into the car. Noreen claims to have had written witness statements from all the people on the street written down before the police arrived. She says the police did go to interview all the witnesses, but didn't bother to bring any writing implements, which baffled the parents of the witnesses and caused them to call Noreen. Okay, hold on a second. I mean, we're going really far into MINDSHOCK land. So the police aren't even taking notes, and the parents of the witnesses found this so strange because this, I guess they knew Noreen, this is the same neighborhood. They called her to tell her how strange that was. Now, also, the people who think Noreen makes stuff up, they would presumably, these other people could verify all this information. I mean, this is just straight up MINDSHOCK. I mean, it gets even worse because the police chief himself said that there's no evidence of a crime when he knew full well that PJ Smith said that he saw Johnny being shot by something and physically abducted into a vehicle. Noreen states that the police chief got very angry at her for wanting a private investigator. Oh, that's telling. Noreen says that the kids who saw the blue car were then taken to a dealership to pick out the color of the paint chips, which changed color under mercury vapor light. She claims that Chief Cooney also made statements to the news that Johnny was just a runaway. Noreen recalls being at a press conference with parents of missing children who were mistreated by police, and the RCMP were there speaking about how in a short time they'd be able to uplink a child's information throughout the world in a matter of seconds on the information superhighway. Does anybody still call the internet that? Noreen says on a daily basis she worked with private investigators who canvassed a radius surrounding her home and performed door-to-door interviews. She refers to one man who was extremely grateful to have been approached by the investigators, saying that he had tried unsuccessfully to tell police what he saw. He got up early to get a drink, heard a motor running, and looked out the window where he noticed a van parked against the flow of traffic, and after watching the van for a while, a blue over blue car pulled up, something long was unloaded from the back seat, and it was put in the van before both cars headed back north towards the interstate. She says that when the detective came back to her with the report, he told her to bury it and never give it to police.